MODO. Morsels.
In this morsel, I'm going to look at a divide and conquer approach to constructing particle systems. At its heart lies the collector-emitter. In this scene, there is a particle source that is generating a new kind of short-lived subatomic particle called a modon. The life of a modon is brief. After a second, they decay into two new types of particle called right-ons, which move to the right, and the antiparticles, the wrong-ons, which don't. Unlike modons, right-ons and wrong-ons are affected by another force. Right-ons are pushed up and wrong-ons are pushed down. In this rig, particles are generated by a radial emitter whose cone angle is set to 0 degrees. A particle operator set to trigger mode sits poised for action. This will activate when the age of the particle reaches 1 second. When this happens, we give a nudge to the particles to make them move left or right. The decision is made using a random number with a seed based on the ID. Now the particles are moving left or right, we use a second particle operator to apply an up-down force, depending on whether the particle is moving to the left or to the right. This works up to a point, and you can probably spot the flaw. Suppose we change the direction of emission. Now the modons and some of the wrong-ons are going up because we used their x-velocity as a proxy for their right or wrongness. Rather than use velocity, we could instead record the particle type in another particle feature, such as its colour. 0 could represent a modon, 1 a right-on, and -1 a wrong-on, for example. This is what the second rig does. There are a couple of simple modifications to the setup. As well as nudging the particles, we also stick a value into the colour red channel to record what type of particle it is. Now applying the up-down force relies only on the value that we stuck in the colour. This works whatever direction we spray in. This approach is sometimes an acceptable solution, but we might want to use the colour for something else, and it does feel a bit hacky. Also, there is no way to enable or disable the built-in forces on a per-particle basis, so we will have to roll everything by hand. The key insight, I think, is that right-ons and wrong-ons having different behaviour really belong in separate simulations. The rules for these simulations can be a lot simpler because we are only worried about one type of particle at a time. There is no need to hijack any of the particle's features to record their state. Each sub-simulation can also be tested in isolation. And so it comes to it at last. The tool we need is the collector-emitter. This lets you move a particle's properties from one simulation to another by emitting a particle into the new simulation and simultaneously killing the original particle. Life as a particle can be brutal. The modon simulation handles just modons. Its particle operator gathers velocities and positions and passes them on to either the right-on or the wrong-on sub-simulation. When the particles are passed over, the originals are killed. When particles are newly created in the sub-simulations, a particle operator set to new is used to give them a nudge in the left or right directions. To implement the up-down force, we can simply use the gravity option in the simulation itself. In this new arrangement, there is perhaps more schematic boilerplate, but it is much more flexible and robust. We can make changes to the behaviours of the right-ons and wrong-ons without having to worry about or change anything else. Particles can even be sent back and forth between simulations, as in this example. So, if your particle systems are getting too complicated, One possible solution might be to split them up. Remember, a problem halved is a problem solved.